Hello and welcome to the Advanced Age Role Playing Gamers podcast. I'm Nathan. I'm your host. And I've got my buddy Matt here with me. Say hi, Matt.
Hi, Matt.
There we go. That's
Hi,
the
Matt.
joke. And we've got Luke Stratton, aka Limithron, creator of Pirate Borg. Hopefully you've heard of that. If you're here, you've probably heard of that. Luke, thanks for seeing us again. It's great to see you and talk to you. How's it going?
Oh, matey, it's going quite well. Thanks you for having me. That's good. It's really good. Pirate Borg is doing swimmingly well, and we're getting ready for our second Kickstarter on September 17th. And there's so many things in the Kickstarter that it's like kind of daunting just to get it all ready to go. But we're really, really excited to like get this stuff out there for people to add to their Pirate Borg campaigns. So,
yeah, this is pretty neat. You sent over a little preview, which thanks a lot for giving us a sneak peek at this. And it looks pretty slick. And it's like a lot of it feels like pretty done. So,
oh, yeah. Well, so, I mean, just a little bit of a quick backstory here. My big like magnum opus is called The Dark Caribbean. It's like this book I've been working on since before Pirate Borg. It's basically a setting book. But after the Pirate Borg Kickstarter, I was like, man, I really want my project to be done before I go to Kickstarter next time so that I can A, focus on the Kickstarter and then B, ship right away rather than that, development cycle that happens. With Pirate Borg, it was great because it did way better than I was expecting. So I got to give it like more energy in spots that I hadn't. But moving forward, I was like, I want to finish these things before we go. And it had been like 2 years and I really need to like get the next thing out. And like people who are coming to our booth are like, do you have anything new?
Yeah.
So rather than just keep on pushing forever, we decided to do like, I had a few adventures that were done that were in the Dark Caribbean that didn't really make sense in that book. And another one, this like vampire thing, which I'm sure we'll talk about, that didn't make any sense in there. And I was like, you know what? I could just finish those and put them in a smaller book and kickstart that now and then go back to working on the Dark Caribbean. Well, so that's what we've decided to do. But then of course, in classic Limithron style, I have to make it as good as possible. So now there's like all these new spreads in there that weren't in there, but it is pretty close to done. There's the bulk of the book is 3 adventures. And those are 2 of them are completely done. One of those needs a little bit more art. And then I'm still finishing up the third one, but we're going to have those. The book should be buttoned and edited by a month after the Kickstarter, hopefully, so people can get the PDF like right away. That's the idea.
Yeah, I mean it's the layout for the stuff that's in here is looks pretty great and in true Pirate Borg style. I think the folks that are that attracted to the Pirate Borg style, they're going to be pretty happy with what I can see right now, which is pretty great. So
yeah, I noticed even in the description that caught my eye from looking at this Pirate Borg or just many of these books in general from the genre. It said rules light. It was like rules light, art heavy. Or I'm probably quoting it a little bit wrong, but
no, that's right.
It's
rules
true.
Light. I mean, that's also a Mork Borg tagline. Rules light.
Yes,
Mork Borg they say rules light, heavy everything else.
Well, and I think it's an interesting. It really is a concept that's kind of gone through these books. That owning these books. I mean, they're great games. You play the games, they're fun, but they're just beautiful to thumb through.
Yeah,
right? I think that's kind of a nice.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, for me, I mean, Mork Borg was a huge lesson for me in that I was playing a lot of 5th edition at the time, and I had started to like get interested in the OSR, but between Mork Borg and Knock, I was like, these guys are presenting information in a way that means more to me than if I had read 300 pages. Like I can understand more about how to present the world of Mork Borg in that example to a group of players just by holding and looking through the book, and I think because of the history of RPGs and especially like Gary Gygax's approach, like you think you need a lore dump on people, and that I don't think that's true at all. I think if I hand you Pirate Borg and I'm like, look at this, now describe what it's like to be there, that you're going to get the group closer to the Dark Caribbean than if I gave them a Word document that was 200 pages,
Right. I think also another advantage you have with that is that, like, think of like when Gygax and all those guys were doing Lord of the Rings, you probably, or not Lord of the Rings, sorry, D&D, you had folks like them who read Lord of the Rings, but Lord of the Rings was not on everybody's bookshelf, right?
That's true, yeah.
And I think with one of the advantages you have is for the collective consciousness. You could just say pirate, and there's not anyone going, "Huh? What's a pirate?"
Yeah, we've actually found that I think this is part of the reason that Pirate Borg has been so successful is that it's rules light, so it's really easy to teach people, even people like if they're playing 5e and they want to break, like the commitment's so low. Like there's here's the rules on one page. Like they're able to dip their toes in without having to read a bunch. But also we see this all the time. Like if you're playing with, we call them normies, or if you're playing with people who don't, didn't grow up with like Lord of the Rings, like in, the back of their brain constantly, or, being able to recite every line of Star Wars, like those people may feel less comfortable playing like a tiefling bard or, like some eldritch wizard. They don't like have the like zeitgeist bumping around in their brain to be able to pull that off. But if I'm like, you're Jack Sparrow and everybody's dead, like, but you don't like, what do you want? Do you want the boat? Do you want the rum? Do you want the treasure? Like, it's so easy for people to like actually role play. I mean, that's the reason, like, you see like fantasy themed parties a little bit now, but like, there's a reason there's pirate birthday parties for kids. Like, it's really easy to pretend to be a pirate. And I think the fact that there hasn't been a game that like scratched that itch before is really crazy to me. Like I think the closest you could get is 7th Sea, and that's not Jack Sparrow. That's Earl Flynn, swashbuckler. So yeah.
Like even our friends, there's lots of photos of our friends in pirate garb.
Absolutely. I mean, pirate cosplay is so much fun.
Well, and right now I live in Maryland, and the Maryland Renaissance Festival, which has been going on for like over 50 years, I think, is running right now. And coming up is the Pirate Weekend, which I think leads right into Talk Like a Pirate Week.
Sure does. Yeah. So Talk Like a Pirate Week is now only a thing because we declared it as a thing. It's really Talk Like a Pirate Day, which is September 19th. It's a problem, though, for multiple reasons for us, because it's always a big day. It's like our DCC day. We always try to do a big in-store thing. But games, like the day moves, since it's not like the third Sunday or whatever, it moves. So like game stores are like, hey, we don't want to run this event on Tuesday. Can we run it on Saturday? There's that. In addition to that, we want to do a Kickstarters on that day. Well, then we can't be in store and Kickstarting. And the icing on the cake is that my anniversary is the 20th. So my wife is always like, I can't do anything too crazy. Like my 10 years this year. And I was like, honey, can I do a Kickstarter like the day before we leave, So all those things combined, we've stretched it to Talk Like a Pirate Week. And I think that actually helps people find our event and not just the thing that is a thing anyway. So if you go to our website, there's an events tab, and GMs are getting like rewards for running. Basically, we have like this Harbor Master program where you get rewards for running Pirate Board games in public, and Talk Like a Pirate Week games count for both seasons, both last season and next season. So it's like a double whammy. But yeah, it's a big week for us. It's just like pirate culture's in the air. So I'm always happy to like, see people like, oh yeah, it's Talk Like a Pirate Day. Oh yeah, of course your Kickstarter's during Talk Like a Pirate Week,
So I just had my 30th anniversary party this past weekend.
Oh, nice! Congratulations!
So yeah, thank you.
Show off.
Yeah. So you got a ways to go, but 10's good. That's a good
big
milestone.
One, though.
Yeah. That's huge. It's crazy. It doesn't feel like that long. But I was just saying, it's like, does she ever ask you, hey, are you gonna be doing this pirate thing like forever?
No, she doesn't ask because she knows.
Okay.
It's funny when we got married. We wanted to do like a themey wedding, and of course the first thing I said was like, "Yo, let's get married on a pirate ship. Everybody dressed up like as pirates." But at the time she had seen some photos of me at a pirate party with an ex-girlfriend, from years before, and she's like, "No, that's a thing with your ex." And I was like, No. You don't understand. Like, she just happened to be there because, we ended up doing like Hobbit themed, which was actually way better for a wedding. It was a little less costumey. And, but yeah, she gets the drill. And, like I said about quote normies playing RPGs, like the only one I can get her to have fun playing is Pirate Borg. Like we tried playing 5e and there's just like too many, like she's not going to read the player's handbook ever. She's going to show up and play, well, when it's like you have 5 stats and 1 ability, like, it's easy, so.
Yeah, like tell me when to roll the dice.
Yeah. She's had a blast, yeah. So.
So that's great. There's so many milestones. I'm glad that Pirate Borg is doing so well for you. So when we talked at Gen Con a couple years ago, was it
A few years
year
back,
Was it Gen Con or PAX?
or Pat? Was it PAX? Oh, God.
I mean, it all blurs together for me. So
Yeah, I know. It's like a haze of crowds and people.
We talked to you in person
Yes.
at a convention. I'll look it up afterwards. But you had talked about your what did you call your magnum opus a few minutes ago, Dark Caribbean. So that was kind of on your mind then, and it seems like it was a year and a half, 2 years ago, something like that. Where are you at with that right now?
So the Dark Caribbean, it's basically a setting book. It's probably going to be around 300 pages. It's basically all of the NPCs and islands and major locations in the Dark Caribbean, and then like detailed kind of event encounter pages on the major events that happen in the Dark Caribbean. So like I spent the first portion of this year. I knew I wanted to do a deck of playing cards that had art from every NPC. So there are 54 core NPCs in the Dark Caribbean, and the beginning of the year I illustrated all 54. So those are done.
Wow.
And each one will have like a, maybe like a 3rd page column of like what they want, like their desires and their like appearance and their manner. I've really worked hard to like kind of, I'm not sure it's going to make it into the final book, but we've been doing things like play this guy like this actor from that movie, but in this vibe, like trying to give GMs like the way to just pull them off the page as quickly as possible. But yeah, it's really going to be like a sandbox campaign setting. It's not like one of those lore dumps. Like I have this really great book. It's the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay Lustria book. And I love the book, but it's like basically 300 pages of lore dump and like no ways to run adventures really. Like there's a few maps, but like the Dark Caribbean is like when you open up the page for say Tortuga, there's a map of the island, there's a map of Tortuga, and then there's like a bunch of tables on like what's going on right now, like what hooks are going on that your players can interact with. So it's much more of a like, hey, there's no way I'm going to be able to remember 300 pages of Dark Caribbean, but like they've decided to go to Maracaibo, the dungeon city. Like what is happening there? And then you just turn to that page, you can show them the map and then roll on the table to see what's happening there. So that's kind of like the vibe of the whole book.
Yeah, and I see you on your Patreon. You put out regular previews of it for folks that want to follow along.
Yeah, basically the idea is that like I really hate this concept of like, oh, I found a game I really like, and now I have to wait 2 years for the next book to come out. So with the Dark Caribbean, it's so modular. Like Nassau's done, Tortuga's done. I have maps for a lot of the other cities done, but like the idea is as they get completed, that people will be able to use them in their campaigns and hopefully provide feedback like, hey, this entry didn't make sense, or like this guy was way too powerful, that kind of thing.
So they can start to introduce it before the actual book is out.
So there's like you're actually releasing pieces of it.
Oh yeah, we're on like I think I've done
so
6
people on the
full
Patreon
releases so
it.
far. And they're fully usable. Like because it's a Patreon and people are like paying for access to this content, I really try to make them complete. Which is, it's honestly pretty stressful on my end. Cause if you were just writing a book, you'd be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to pause Tortuga today to figure out what's going on over in Havana. And then I'll tie that in. Well, I can't really do that. Cause when I release Tortuga, I want it to be like a complete thing, which is what we've done so far. But yeah, it's definitely a bit of a challenge to tie it all together. But the flip side is it's immediate value to people. Like if you were playing Pirate Borg just out of the book, and you were a Patreon subscriber, you could just go download Tortuga and run it and then move on to another campaign. Like it fully works. Tortuga is actually really fun because it has an old fort, which is based on a real old fort. And the fort is haunted by the ghost of a famous pirate who eats hearts to kind of stay alive. But the rest of the town, I mean, if you're familiar with Pirate Borg and the Dark Caribbean, like the setting is driven by ash, which is the like undead remains that can be like ingested or smoked or snorted or whatever your group's preference is for like psychedelic and physiological effects. So basically like this fort is haunted, but then you've got a bunch of like ash dealing pirates that live there that like, as long as as long as the balance between the two factions is equal, like they'll capture the ghost pirates and turn, harvest their ash. So it's like this really like rich place for an adventure. Like, do you want to go fight and take out some ghosts, or you want to try to take over the fort, or do you want to so it's kind of fun.
Yeah. So that's really cool that you're just kind of giving folks that subscribe to your Patreon just all that detail on places that they can go and adventure sites and things like that. And there's like previews. It looks like to the upcoming Kickstarter, and you've got tons and tons of maps.
So many
Yeah,
maps,
yeah. Just like how much content are you pumping out a month on Patreon?
Well, before Pirate Borg, we were doing like 3 or 4 battle maps a month, and Pirate Borg kind of changed all that because making adventures is a lot more work because you have to write them and lay them out and then illustrate them. I think once this Kickstarter finishes and I get it sent to the printer, I'll go back to like a regular schedule of working on Dark Caribbean half the month and then doing a big release for that and then doing maps and content for the other half. Like for example, one of the things we have planned coming up in this book, in Down Among the Dead, there's a stretch goal for a Jolly Roger generator, which I actually already have written, but I'm not going to do the layout and all the art for it unless we hit this stretch goal. But basically you can roll up, like, what's the pirate flag look like? And there's like a couple D100 tables and then like the condition of the flag. And I worked really hard to make sure that the generator can hypothetically could roll all the real pirate flags, if you had really, really lucky roll, but one of the things on the Patreon will be, I'll have drag and drop pieces of art for all 200 entries on there. So like if you rolled up, it's got 2 skulls and one of them has demon horns and then crossbones underneath, you could go drag those icons onto a blank flag and then print it out or, send it to a real flag printer if you're crazy, or put it into your VTT. So that's kind of the stuff that like I've always been excited about as a GM, but that like I feel like no other game companies really do, where you can mix the like digital asset world with what you're making in the book.
Everybody really wasn't possible when we all got started, but
sure.
But yeah, now I see more and more things like that where they're trying to include digital assets, whether it's music or some sort of graphics or NPC cards like you're talking about.
Yeah, you get it more now that there are kind of like younger, indie creators, especially making Kickstarters. But I guess that what I'm trying to say is that the Patreon really lets those things, like there's no way I could, spend a month making a bunch of asset kit pack for a flag generator and then like put it into an online store and hope that makes sense. Like there's not going to be a demand for that. But if you're in the Patreon and you're playing a pirate game already, you're totally going to use that. Like it may not be worth the purchase, but it's definitely worth part of the overall package. That's kind of the idea of Patreon's just another form of crowdfunding. So
yeah. I mean, it gives indie creators like you an opportunity to kind of find their audience, I think, and give them the things that they're looking for.
The thing that I've really loved about Patreon is it really, like, it's not a store, and it really lets me like make the thing I want to make without having to worry about going to market, in quotes. That's always a good thing. If you're a publisher, well, what's the full product look like? What's the launch date? Like, well, with Patreon, you don't do any of that. You just make it and then give it to people, and they can use it right away, and everybody wins. So
Matt, do you have any questions off the top of your head before we dive into the Kickstarter stuff?
Oh no, I was getting ready to dive into the Kickstarter.
Well, do you want to start? So we're going to get into Down Among the Dead now. The core of it is three adventures. And I want to get to the adventures in a second, but do you have anything off the top of your head, Matt, that you want to?
No, in fact, like I said, so I do have a couple of questions, but they are tied to the adventure. But first, I'm looking at the overview of the Kickstarter products. It's a lot of stuff. And it's an amazing. There's a lot of this is very exciting, and I see there's a lot of extra stuff too because you're going to be offering as part of your stretch goals the previous materials as well. So someone could really jump in and not just kickstart for what's coming out, but they could kickstart and get basically the whole Pirate Borg suite of products.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I think add-ons is maybe a better word than stretch goals because they're not. You don't have to unlock them.
It's true. Right. Right.
But
Okay.
yeah, so what? Like, it was just going to be this book. Like, let's just do a small Kickstarter. But we actually had like kind of through a fortuitous turn of events, I brought on a new full-time staff member named Zach Goins, who was with World of Game Design. We've run into Zach a bunch on the convention circuit. And when he kind of was moving on to new projects, we like knew we had to have him, and his specialty is Kickstarters. I think he's run like 50 of them or something.
Wow.
So like with him on board, I'm able to like do things in the Kickstarter without having to do all the manufacturing side. Like he can help take care of that. And that's been great because then we can be like, let the creative side drive what we're making rather than like, that's going to be too much work. So we went from just this one book to like, there's the core book. We're doing a like giant A0, which is like 4 feet long, battle map for both of the adventures. We're doing dice that are like, I'm a dice goblin. So like making my own dice is like a dream come true. It's not just like a cash grab. It's like, we'll pay extra to have these dice, you know?
Yeah.
And then at Gen Con this year, I picked up the Arkham Horror role-playing game. They had a starter set, you know, and it was $35, and it has all these assets in it. Like it has like puzzles and tokens and battle maps and booklets. And I was like, dude, we should just do one of these. Like, this is such a cool product. And like Pirate Borg has all these assets because of the Patreon, years of making pirate ships. It's like, this would be really easy to do. So then we blew it from just the book to now we're doing a starter set as well with a new adventure in it. That's called Trapped in the Tropics. And it's going to have, you know, 3 big battle maps, punch out tokens for creatures and for ship combat. It's going to have laminated character creation guides. Like it's the number of things in the kit is like insane. So I'm really excited about that. And then of course we're doing, you can get all the old stuff. Like since there's the starter kit, it's really kind of like, hey, Pirate Borg did really well the first time, but like that was before it got all the press hype, and that's before it was signed to Free League. And now like this second time around, like Free League is on board and they're helping with like all our worldwide distribution. And it's just, I don't know, it's really exciting to see all these like little pieces falling into place. And we've also learned like what GMs need at the table. So we're trying to get some of those things into Kickstarter so that you can get, you know, you don't have to outsource as, you know, many things as you would with you just buy just a book, you know?
Yeah, I am a huge fan of starter kits, and I've talked to we talked to Chaosium a few times, and
Oh
I
yeah.
always compliment them on their starter kits.
Theirs are really great too. Yeah.
So yeah, and Free League's been doing great with them also. So
Well,
I'm
yeah,
kind of
I think Free League is probably why we're doing it because
Yeah.
their starter kits are so good. That yeah, it's just really great way to get people into an experience, not just into a game, you know, because with all the little visual aids and stuff.
it really helps
It's
that, you know, having the dice, the maps, and the tokens, and all that,
Yeah.
and pre-gens and all that just helps
Yeah, so
folks, you know,
one
start.
cool thing about Pirate Borg is we're not doing pre-gens
Oh,
because
okay.
Pirate Borg is so easy to roll up characters. That's part of the experience. But instead of pre-gens, we're doing these laminated character creation cheat sheets and PC sheets so that it'll actually come with a little dry erase markers so you can
Okay.
go through the creation all together, which takes like 20 minutes max, you know.
you know a system's lethal when you create your character with dry erase.
Yes, yes. Well, I mean, the character sheets are pen and paper, but
No, I'm just
yes. But you are correct. There's a reason
Yeah.
we provide the experience in the box, you know. And the other thing too is that Trapped in the Tropics is going to be a really like, for listeners familiar with Buried in the Bahamas, that's kind of our like flagship intro adventure that I wrote after Pirate Borg. We're going to kind of take that one step further and like, it's going to be an adventure that's totally usable by veteran GMs, but it'll also have little like liner notes for people who are maybe, if not brand new to the hobby, brand new to Pirate Borg. So the idea there is that, you know, you could buy, you know, hypothetically buy the starter kit at Barnes and Noble or wherever, and it could be people's first RPG. Whereas the Pirate Borg book was always like, oh, I'm just making a hack of Morkborg. But now it's like, we realize that this game is fun enough for all, you know, people try to play at all ages. They try to do like
Yep.
One Piece hacks. They do Pirates of the Caribbean hacks. So it's like, it's cool to like, you know, think about it more as not just this spin off of an indie game that I love, but something that's a little bit more mass market appeal, I guess.
It's good to see that people are putting stuff like you said into kits, like dice
Yeah.
and little like battle chips. It's funny. I was showing my son a picture of an old video game. Right, I'd found like a thing online. It was a picture of like the video game that you used to go buy at the store, and it had all the pieces laid out. And it was the box. It had a
Yeah.
rule book. It had this little. It was an old TSR one. It had like a decoder circle for like runes, and it had a map. And it was like you used to get all those things. Now I go to Steam and I hit download.
Yeah.
Right. You know.
I mean, that was part of the gameplay. It was like you needed to read the manual to know what was going on. Like I remember the
Right.
Marathon box for the old Mac computer game that the guys from Bungie ended up making, but Halo from. Like that had lore in the manual that was nowhere else. Like you did not know what you were doing on the space station unless you read the manual. Yeah, I'm into that kind of stuff. I'm into artifacts too. It's just cool to have like cool little artifacts, especially like official ones. It's always cool to have.
Well, you have those coins, right? You're gonna have a
Oh my God,
coin
yeah.
that's available.
There's almost too many things in this Kickstarter for me to even talk about. So there's a bunch of things. First off, we're doing this VIP thing where if you pledge $1 now, you get a big Charon's opal that's also a D2, or Sharon's opal, however you want to say it. That you can also buy it in the Kickstarter, but if you VIP back, you get it now, and then the $1 comes off your shipping later. So it's basically just like Kickstarters are. You want to get people to go right away because that gets the momentum.
Yeah.
We're doing that. Then we're also doing a bag of Devil's Luck D2s, which are a little bit smaller, but the idea is, you've got Devil's Luck, which is like the meta currency in Pirate Borg. Hand these coins out. I ran a poll with the VIPs to figure out the design, and we're going to do like a Pirate Borg style piece of 8, the old silver coins.
Mhm.
But then the back is going to have like a pentagram etched into it because that's Devil's Luck. So those are going to be really cool. And then we have another stretch goal to do, like, because the Charon's opal is very lost to the locker, which is one of the adventures. We're going to do 2 more coins if we hit the like really high stretch goal. That will be for the other 2 adventures. One's going to be like serpent, kind of Mayan themed, and the other one will be vampire themed. So
very cool.
Yeah, lots of coins. I love coins. We just make stuff that I want. Basically, it's like, what can we make for our company that we want to own ourselves? That's just all we do.
You're making your own loot,
dude. It's amazing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Make your own.
Yeah.
Well, I have a friend who's he's more of he does play role-playing games, but he's a big board gamer.
Sure.
Big board gamer. And I remember talking to him one day and he said they did this big study. They said, what was people's favorite part about board games? And they said it was opening them up.
Yeah.
Right? Opening all the little things,
Sure.
right? That's what people want to do. And I think, so that I want to open up a bag of coins. Yeah.
I mean, we say this all the time. Like, we're very adamant about this, that like reading a role-playing game and collecting role-playing games is playing role-playing games. Like, I think some people are like, I don't have time to play. And it's like, did you read the thing then you're playing? Like, I get like my library. I mean, look at this. Like, you can't even see my OSR library, but this is just
oh my gosh.
That's just all the big stuff over here. And then I've got, let's see if I can spin it around here. It's my OSR stuff. Like, I don't play all those, man. I always have to run Pirate Borg because people are always like, Luke, can you run Pirate Borg for us? So for me, like, I really just get joy out of diving into these worlds,
One of the things looking at this preview for Down Among the Dead, before I even got to the adventures, one of the things that really caught my eye and I had to go through were all the house rules that you
well,
these are fun.
Some of them are really fun. Some of them are sourced from the community. There's one of them is like straight up from Cyborg. I gave Cyborg credit about like a damage always hurts. But we found, when people play a game a lot, I mean, people play Pirate Borg. We had 100 events at Gen Con this year. Like, people are playing it, and you learn things like that are a problem. Like, I don't really like rolling for damage reduction. I think it slows down combat. I think it's like a little clunky and it's hard to explain. Well, like, there are rules in here for suggesting how to get rid of it, whether it's adding armor class or just making it a static number. But then there are a lot more fun ones, like, we call it cosplaying in the sand. Is like, if you if you wear a costume to Pirate Borg game, you automatically get the gear that you brought. Please don't bring a working musket to your Pirate Borg game.
But like, drink up me hearties. I thought about that, especially when you're bringing up the laminated character gen sheets.
Yeah, so like when you drink rum is basically like a healing potion in Pirate Borg, but you have a chance of getting sick. and the difficulty gets higher the more you drink.
Mm.
So we say if you are drinking at the table while drinking game, that you negate the roll, which
I
it's not
like
for
that
every
role.
table, but for some tables it's
I
perfect.
like that rule.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we have a getaway that we where we get up together once a year, and so
yeah.
I think we have to bring bring Pirate Borg to
Oh
that.
yeah, and I mean, with that in mind, we were talking about doing a cruise, but the cruises are like they're either the boats are too small to run role playing games on, like everyone would get sick if there was weather, or
Mm.
you're in a giant cruise ship with a bunch of other people. So I think we've nixed the cruise idea after talking to our GMs, and we're talking about doing like maybe somewhere in Florida or maybe on Ocracoke Island where Blackbeard was, doing a little mini con. So
Oh, okay.
the idea of playing Pirate Borg in the place where it is supposed to take, like, you don't get to do that with D&D. You can't go to Faerun, you can't,
Right.
like, you can go to
Closest you can
England, but
go is like New Zealand, right?
yeah,
Go
I
to
mean, but it's still like
the Hobbit.
we actually finished writing and playtesting Buried in the Bahamas on a boat in the Bahamas. Like it was like
Nice.
so cathartic. Like I can only. And then when we finished the campaign, we cast the book into the Nassau Harbor. I was like, this is where the game takes place. Like it's so cool. So we're gonna try to, yeah. Spoiler, I guess. If we're working on hopefully figure out in the next few years how to do that. So.
But yeah, there's lots of other good stuff in here. Dark Caribbean Island Generator, Coral
Yeah.
Reef Generator, which are fun. Because I'm sure people have seen this before. Where you have a blank sheet of paper, you throw a bunch of dice down, and then you draw the map from that. So I love that kind of stuff. That's super fun.
Yeah,
But you,
I love those like drop table things. I just think they're
yeah,
really fun tools for GM. Like I said, you know, prepping is playing, reading is playing. So I think the more fun you can make for the GMs, the better.
Well, I think, we've talked about this before. A lot of these, when the random, right? The sort of like, if you're the GM and you've drawn the map and you have your map and you know what's behind every corner, right?
Mhm.
You're just with these, the GM gets to actively be surprised and
Oh yeah.
be on there. It's a more active role. And not saying that being a GM is not an active role, but it's I don't know. There's a quality when you don't know what's around the next bend, right? Until the dice roll. I think that's kind of fun.
I
And
mean,
some
yeah.
people may not like that because they
Some
want to
people
have it
might
all
not. We
prepped.
hear this a lot though, and I've experienced it that like a game like Pirate Borg, I'm not saying this is exclusive to the Pirate Borg experience, but it does embrace it. That kind of emergent gameplay thing is a lot. GMs tell us all the time, like, it was the most fun I've had playing in a while. And honestly, this is why I made it from Morkborg, because that's how we felt when we played Morkborg. It was like, oh, like writing 3 pages of backstory and like being worried about this like Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings level of narrative can be really, really hard to pull off. But like when one of your players is like literally a cursed chicken, and the other guy has 1 hit points and is missing an arm, like 1 hit point and is missing an arm. It's like you can't not laugh at that. Like it just really is. I don't know. It just really comes out like it's a great game for conventions or groups that want to just like relax and have a good time. That being said, you can still run it long term. I just think your expectations are a lot different. You're not going to turn into Gandalf. You're going to be like
right.
on your 5th character sometimes. So we're running this West Marches campaign right now that ends during Talk Like a Pirate Week, at least the first pass through. And we have this problem that we're trying to sort out where like the guys that survived are like, +5, +6 and all their stats. And people who didn't have to roll new characters every session. It's like, and they're like, this is a problem. I was like, this is actually what we designed. Like there are legends among you and then a bunch of crappy crew, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Here's your red shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now that's not for everybody, but if it's not for you, you can make some easy tweaks, like give them max hit points at first level. It's that kind of stuff.
So dipping into the adventures, you've come up with an interesting solution for those TPKs.
Oh yeah.
Lost to the Locker.
Oh,
You
okay.
talk
So
about
I got this idea literally from Carl Druid. He wrote a Morkborg adventure called Graves Left Wanting, where basically it could be an intro adventure or post TPK where all the players wake up in a giant mass grave and they're not dead. And then they have to like escape this like massive graveyard where things are like, you don't really know where things are. Well, like I've had this idea for years in the like, actually before I even heard of Morkborg, I would run this Halloween. I think I ran it as a 4-shot where my players were undead and they ended up in Port Oblivion, which is this like, shipwrecked town on a bunch of islands in the middle of like a misty Black Sea. It's not on this plane, if you will. Well, when I read Graves Left Wanting, I was like, dude, we got to do something like this for Pirate Borg. I actually asked Carl if he wanted to write it, but he was too busy with Frontier Scum. So I ended up doing it myself. Which means, of course, I hyper focused and went way deeper than I probably should have. But basically, post TPK, post drowning, post storm, whatever, or you're going to look for an NPC that got killed. They end up in purgatory. It's these like islands in the middle of this Black Sea. And you can't escape. Like the rules don't work. I won't spoil it, but the rules are different. A lot of rules get broken.
Yeah.
Time does not work. There's a D20 timetable that can go from rolling a nat 20 is, you arrive 20 seconds before you left. And rolling a 1 is you arrive 1 eon after you left, that kind of thing. So it's just very wacky. It comes with a map of the locker, but you can also use that as just a checklist of locations, and then have your players like roll each time they travel to find out what island they find. But basically, they need to like find a way to escape this like dark, terrible place with like there's hundreds of lost souls. There's the ferryman himself, who he has I think he has 666 hit points, and when he hits you, he does D66 damage. So like, don't get close to him, But it's been a lot of fun to write. And another cool thing about it, I mean, it's really like the flagship of the adventure because the cover is based off of it. But one of the things about it is we're really into this program called Alchemy RPG, which is a very like kind of theater of the mind focused VTT. And they have these things where they like to call them scenes, where you're not loading up a map, you're loading like an image that the players sit and look at when they're all talking. Well, each location in the locker has an illustrated scene. You can use it in any VTT or at the table. And actually, the Kickstarter, you can get handouts for them. But the idea is like, here's what it looks like at Port Oblivion. Here's the shipwrecked town. Here's the Coral Gate where you arrive at, and other lost souls floating around. So it's kind of got that like, did you see that Pixar movie Soul? Like mix Soul with Pirates of the Caribbean.
Well, and I'm looking at the art too, and I can see, because I've messed around with alchemy a bit with mixed success.
Yeah.
But I could see how you could easily take the art that you have here and apply some motion graphics to it, and it would
I actually just talked
beautifully with.
I talked to those guys the other day. They're actually going to do a premium Lost or Down Among the Dead module, so they're going to do some of those animations built in like they did for Pirate Borg, which is really exciting. I mean, we're going to support Roll20 and Foundry as well, of course. You can still load these scenes in. It's just that they kind of the aspect ratio and the genesis of the idea was from Alchemy. So
yeah, but it's, I can see how this is like the flagship adventure.
Sure.
Just in seeing that. If I were running this just the way it turns some of the standard Pirate Borg rules on their heads a bit, or tweaks them a bit, I would probably run I think probably for me it'd be the best way is run some regular Pirate Borg first, and then
kill them. Yeah,
then kill them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
yeah. So I think that would be great. But you've got a couple more adventures in here. There's Venom in the Veins. Seems more like a kind of South American.
I was interested in that one too, because that stood out, because I don't think if I read this right, your main characters aren't necessarily pirates, right? In that one, they're conquistadors.
Well,
did I read that right?
You could do it. You could run it however. I mean, I really love this idea of, especially moving forward, that you're playing in the Dark Caribbean as different factions. Like 100% playing as a conquistador faction can work great. Basically, one of the hooks is that like conquistadors have hired you. They found this temple. One of their conquistadors is missing. You please go find him. But this adventure is really inspired by old school Essentials kind of writing, and that there are multiple factions at play in the dungeon that want different things, and probably none of them want what the players want, so they can like pit them against each other. Like I don't want to really give any spoilers, but there's a resource that can be extracted from this place that one of the factions in Dark Caribbean really wants, that's not the Spanish. So when you get in there, some of them are in there, some of them have died trying to get this thing out, that kind of thing. But it's very much I love maps. I drew this really fun snake themed dungeon. We call it Mazoan is the culture in Dark Caribbean. It's kind of like, think of like Wakanda meets South America, where like
Mm.
Mayans and Aztecs survived and to make these massive city states because of the magic that's in the area. And this is one of their temples. But yeah, it's very, very Indiana Jones. Very dungeon crawl. And for me, that's what Pirate Borg. It's like, oh, you're at sea, you're sailing, there's islands, there's Delarc ships, and there's temples everywhere. That's the vibe.
Yeah, and last but not least, Into the Maelstrom, which is your vampire
Yeah,
adventure.
we can't really say vampire in our marketing, I don't think, because there is a book called Vampirates of the whatever, but it's
No.
what it is. It's vampire. It's vampire pirates, but with a twist. Um, it's, I guess, without giving too spoilerly, this is very much like 100%. This is I6 Ravenloft or Curse of Strahd meets Shadow over Innsmouth, like that meets Pirates of the Caribbean. Like
Oh,
that's the
okay.
vibe. And as it sits right now, like the version that you guys have is mostly just kind of a dungeon crawl. It's basically a vampire castle on a ship, on a
On a
pirate
ship,
ship,
yeah.
on a first rate ship of the line. And it's very like kind of Morkborg, old school essential style layout, where you have like full maps of the side view and top view of the ship on every page, so you can really tell
Yeah,
where you're at. And then
yeah.
the monsters are very clearly labeled on the map. But one of my stretch goals, and I'm trying to make sure, I really hope we get it. I want to make sure it's low enough that we definitely get it, is to do an expanded version of this adventure that'll take it from less I6 Ravenloft and a little bit more Curse of Strahd. Obviously, it's not going to be that long, but I really would like to add a town and, like a haunted jungle with some like,
Oh, wow.
old
Okay.
ruins that you need to go explore. It kind of maybe place some relics or something around the Dark Caribbean. But yeah, basically there's a big bad vampire and he's got a cohort of other vampires, and it's like perfect for Halloween. It's going to be, uh, you know, so tropey. It's like almost a little, this is why it wasn't in Dark Caribbean. It's like a little too tropey.
Mhm.
There's literally a forest on one of the decks that's filled with ravens. It's like,
That
you
that
probably
is
wouldn't have
that is
that in a.
so old school D&D.
Yeah. I mean, it's still logical in a sense,
Yeah.
especially the way that, I won't spoil it, but the way, like what this vampire is up to kind of explains some of the things on the ship. But there's definitely some like Halloween shit in this thing. So, yeah. Another cool thing, I mean, not to be too like salesy about it, but that adventure is coming out this month on Patreon.
Oh,
So
okay.
people can play test it, but they can also have it ready to run. Like, I don't want people to have to wait till next Halloween to run this thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So they can get it now and run it in October, because we're recording like on the middle of September right now. So
Yeah, yeah. It looks really cool to me. And I do like the an old school dungeon crawl and having on a ship with all these different environments on each level, and what you're describing, the overhead view and then the side view alongside it really does help a lot. There's other games I absolutely love, but and they have beautiful maps. I'm not going to say Alien, but it's Alien. But it's really hard to find. Okay, where's that ladder G7 go?
yeah,
And trying to go between the maps and just to figure out where the players are go can be really challenging. But just having like both views on a page makes things a lot simpler
yeah. I
to
mean,
run. So
I know you guys know I love maps, but I always had this problem with WotC Adventures, is that you buy this book and then like maybe there's a big map at the back, but all the ones of the dungeons all have like all the spoilers and labels on them, and it's like, what? Like, how do I even show this to my players without showing them the page? So like we
yeah.
really have worked hard. All our digital assets have like player versions, so if you're playing online, that's easy. But then, like I was mentioning earlier, the big mega map, the front is the Snake Temple and the back is the Vampirate ship.
Okay.
And you'll still need to like bring a black sheet or black construction paper to cover the labels.
Hmm.
But the idea is that you could roll out this 4-foot map in front of your group, and it's like, dude, it's like $20 for like you couldn't print this thing for $100 at Kinko's, and it's like,
Right. Right.
Like we try to make everything as cheap as we possibly can, but still as inexpensive as possible, so that people can actually use it. But the idea was like, Halloween, roll this thing out, cover half of it up. Like you're up on top and like the ratlins and shrouds are made of spider webs instead of rope. Like, what do? There's mist everywhere. Blood is dripping from corpses hanging from the, it's like very, very, one of those.
Yeah.
I digress.
No, it's beautiful. Just like the passion you have for this and just the support you've gotten from not just the Borg community, but just like, scallywags in general.
Yeah, man.
I think it's great.
I mean, it kind of feels like, there's just this vibe out there of people like me who are like, we need good. I don't want to, like I said, I love 7th Sea, but I don't want to play I don't want to be Princess Bride, I want to be Barbossa and his guys on, I want to be like grim, dark. I want it to be, it's Darkest Dungeon beats Sea of Thieves. I say that all the time. Like I want it to be evil, terrible pirates in a terrible world. And I feel like, thankfully, there are other people out there who are excited to hop in on that journey with us. So
it's fun to play the bad guy, and sometimes finding redeemable and with the unredeemable or irredeemable.
Yeah, I was saying this the other day, but like, when you play Borg and you don't have an arm or you're like your teeth are missing, you're like, oh, I'm so terrible. But like in Pirate Borg, you just expect that. Like of course he's missing a leg. He's a pirate. Like
duh.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't make it. It's like dark, but also not dark. It's like
And of course he's got an undead parrot.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
Of course, the captain is a skeleton monkey. Like that's of course.
Luke, it's great to chat with you again. Hopefully we can chat again soon after this successful Kickstarter. But Matt,
cross your fingers. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll come back and talk even more about the terrible place that is the Dark Caribbean.
Yeah. Matt, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, I think this is really awesome. No, I think this is one of those games that we've done the Borg. We need to do the Pirate Borg.
Yep.
Because I think this would be a lot of fun. And I'll just leave that as that last little worm in your brain is, playing a pirate hunter or that would be, again, that'd be kind of a cool idea. I'd be down for that. For those of us who
real quick, at GaryCon last year, I ended up running a pickup game for some people. I was like, what should we do? And I was like, Pirate Borg. And they all played as rats in the hold of a ship. And it ended up with my buddy Haas fashioning armor out of cheese. I mean, that's, you don't need Pirate Borg to get that kind of wacky, but it's there if you want it,
That's beautiful.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's good stuff. Luke, anything from you? Anything you want to?
No, I just want to say Kickstarter is on September 17th, which is the beginning of Talk Like a Pirate Week. Check out limithron.com, our events page, if you're looking for a game on Talk Like a Pirate Week, or if you want to run one, get our Harbor Master credit. I'm pretty much everywhere at Limithron, which is actually Sendarin for Light Wizard.
I didn't ask that before. I should have asked you that.
No, it's all good.
And all the links for Patreon, Kickstarter, social media, all that stuff will be in the description. So just open that up and click. But thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time.